We're going to speak with Tatiana Hoffman, who's going to go through and cover new insights with a holistic attribution strategy. Tatiana is product lead at Adjust. I love seeing this. Starting her journey with the company 6 years ago as an account manager, then becoming a team lead for support in the Americas before joining the product team. She has a wealth of first-hand experience and knowledge on what mobile marketers need. And most importantly, she ensures clients' voices are heard and our app growth needs are met. Love it. Fun fact from Tatiana. She's Brazilian, born and raised in Sao Paulo. Her dream was to be a veterinarian. Okay, interesting. Product management was obviously her second choice. Halloween is her favorite holiday. And her true ghost stories are unbeatable. Now, maybe you want to get in contact with Tatiana for all the insights, what she's going to show today, and maybe even interesting for our ghost stories. Tatiana, the floor is yours and welcome. And thank you very, very much for being here with us today. We are very, very excited for your presentation. I'm very excited. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. It's an amazing lineup. But this topic in particular is very fascinating to me, especially because it's not top of mind for a lot of marketers. So hopefully by the end of our session, you're going to see this topic with different eyes and really see the beauty of including assist analysis into your overall strategy when, reviewing campaign performance, channel efficiency. But I promise you, in the next 20 minutes, tons of good information about it, including a case study. So yeah, hang in there, please. I'll try to make it very fun. That is our topic, assist and assistant analysis. But first, let me just, I know David gave you a quick intro about myself, so thank you for that. And if you do want to hear about ghost stories, that was not a joke. I do have some good ones, so feel free to reach out to me about that. I won't mind. But yeah, I started with Adjust 6 years ago. I can't believe it. And in support, which if you ask me, that is the best way of learning everything about this industry. I saw everything firsthand, what it takes really to run successful campaigns, to get the data that you need, and really what marketers go through on a day-to-day basis. And became a team lead. It was very, very fun times. And after 2 years, I moved over to product, with my client knowledge and really enthusiasm. And I was like, all right, I'm going to help the team build products that our clients need and want. And that's where I am to this day. Very happy. Love this industry. Love just all the knowledge there is to share around. And this event is a statement of that. So yes. All right. Here's our agenda for today, short and sweet, but we are going to start with the basics. You're going to hear me talk a lot about attribution logic. So I want to make sure you are on the same page about it, really understand what is the logic behind it. And from that, we're going to move to the meaty part of our session. So talking about assisted installs, giving you the definition, what do we mean by it, how does it work? And really the beauty of it, right? Of what it could uncover once you start incorporating that into your overall analysis. And then we're going to talk about CTV, because very quickly you're going to see how, when talking about assists, CTV comes into play and how it complements each other very well. And we're going to end with our case study, which is related to CTV. So I'm very excited about sharing more about that, what we uncovered when testing, the assist analysis with CTV campaigns. Very exciting. All right, let's start with the basics. Attribution 101. So this is a very basic example of how an install gets attributed to a source, right? This is a basic mobile ad campaign. So of course, it starts with the engagement. Here, a user is clicking on an ad. At click, your MMP will be collecting some data points from that engagement, and the user will, most likely get redirected to a store to then download, install the app, and then open. And at app open, your MMP will collect more data points, and that's where the magic is going to happen, which is the matching, right? So match the install to that source. very basic. And again, this is other things could happen, but this is one a basic example of what usually happens. But what powers that logic, right, is what we call attribution waterfall, because it's not every engagement that is eligible for that attribution. So we do follow a certain logic, and starting from the top, that's the strongest engagement, down to the bottom, the weakest. What I mean by strongest is this engagement shows an actual intent by the user, right? So a click is an actual intent by the user to click on that ad. And the strongest one will be a click with deterministic attribution, aka a device ID. The second strongest is still a click, but with probabilistic matching. So anything but a device ID. And you saw also a lot of the presentation. So, this with the data privacy regulations that we're all facing. The second one, right? So click with probabilistic matching is the one becoming more common for us to come by. Then it comes the impressions. So impression, same logic, impression with deterministic attribution and impression probabilistic. And down at the bottom is just the organic, which just means there was no eligible engagement fighting for that attribution, right? So organic user. So yes, just still talking about the basics. And that seems easy, right? So following the logic, but what makes it complex is that on an average, marketers use around 14 channels to engage their users. And for sure, this number is going to keep growing and growing. So you can imagine that potentially there are a lot of engagements competing for one single install. And that's where the complexity starts building up. Still covering basic information, because again, I do want us to be all on the same page when I talk about, attribution. Let's say we have an install, and it could be a non-assisted install. What do I mean by that? So we're looking here at a user journey. This user then, saw an ad on Apple Search Ads. After a few days, they saw, they clicked actually on an ad on Facebook to then finally install. Which engagement is going to win that install? What's going to get the credit? Well, in this scenario, it's going to be Facebook's ad, not only because it's a click, right? The click versus impression, but also because that impression falls out of the attribution window. I think in the slide, you might not really see, we have like a gray bars in the background to, indicate the attribution window. And do keep that in mind throughout the session, because attribution windows play a big role when it comes to, collecting assist data. And I'm going to tell you why in a little bit. But in this scenario, this is how the logic will work, right? So, okay, the Apple Search Ad impression is not qualified. So this is an easy one, right? The Facebook engagement won that credit with no assistance. But a more common scenario, again, going back to the slide of 14 channels on an average that are used to engage users, we might see this, right, more commonly. So a lot of engagements, this user seeing tons of ads in different channels. So starting here in this example with an impression on Apple Search Ads, then a click on TikTok, another click on Facebook, ending with an impression on Google Ads to then finally install. Who gets the credit here? Well, still thinking about the attribution window, and again, I think it might be hard for you to see, but the Apple Search Ads one falls out of the window, so that's not even eligible. Now we have 3 eligible engagements for this install, and the engagement is going to win is Facebook's click, because again, the click will trump Google Ads impression. But this is a much different story, right? Because you could end here and say, okay, Facebook won, that's the one that drove the install, great. But you're missing out from the picture that no, actually TikTok and Google helped out. So the user actually engaged with those ads. They went to those channels. That should count for something, right? And that is potentially the big picture that you're missing here if you're not including those assisting channels into your analysis. All right, still one more slide about basics, I promise. It's just because if you, after the session, you go on and you want to learn more about assisted installs, you might run into this terminology. So I want to make sure that you're aware of it. So in this example, we're looking at a typical user journey. Again, tons of engagements. But remember, the ones that we care about are the ones within the attribution window, right? The eligible ones for that attribution. So in this example, we see a total of 4, 3 impressions and 1 click, right? These are the ones that are eligible. Obviously, the click will get to the attribution. Again, remember, go back to our attribution waterfall logic. But we had 3 other ones, 3 other assisting channels that could have potentially won that credit. So for those, we do have ranks, right? Obviously, the channel that got the attribution is rank 0, but then the ones that assisted also get ranked. And the one closest to the channel that got the attribution timestamp wise is rank 1, and then the other one rank 2, so forth, so on. So just to put this in your radar, when you're reading about the topic, you might run into this. So if you start to think to yourself, okay, this is actually good information to have. Yeah, I am not paying attention. I want to consider this, and you should rightfully so, because I just did a recent analysis, excuse me, of 2 months worth of data. And which, it's equivalent to 2.7 billion attributions. That's like, I can't even comprehend that amount of information. But out of those 2.7 billion attributions, at least 29% were assisted installs. And what I mean by that is that they had 2 or more channels competing for that attribution. And you can see here this chart, the distribution, right, by vertical, obviously with gaming right at the top. But so 29%, that's a lot of data. And it really clearly indicates that you might be missing a lot of the big picture. You might be missing a lot of good trends that would, give you some clues where your users are going to, which ads they're engaging with, and that you should definitely be considering. So if this is the feelings or questions that I'm putting in your head, I'm glad, because definitely this is the intent for the session. And not only that, but if you haven't been doing this already and you want to try it, you also have to ask yourself, do I have everything that it needs for me to get this assist data, right? Do I have the correct setup? And so, for example, do I have the correct attribution window? Remember attribution window when I mentioned a little bit a while ago? So is it long enough? Because the longer the attribution window, the more engagement data I will be collecting, which is great, right? More pieces of my puzzle. Also, if I have impression-based or view-through turned on, do I have probabilistic matching turned on? All of that, right, will allow me to collect more engagement data. And this is all what it comes down to, right? Collecting as much engagement data, really seeing all the different touch points that my user had before that one install. All right, so talking about, assists and assist analysis. So hopefully you start painting this picture in your head of all the benefits and what potentially you might be missing out on it. And like I said, it really comes down to giving you the full picture of your user journey. Not only looking at the traditional less touch point attribution, which channels, got the credit for, but also what did it take, right, for that user to finally convert? How many channels, how many clicks or impressions? This is what you should be looking at. This is what should be part, right, your daily conversations and analysis, especially when it comes the time to optimize your campaigns, distribute your budget. You need to know the full context of what happened for that one install to then, finally convert. And with that, starting that analysis, you're going to start, asking yourself some really different questions that maybe you weren't asking yourself before. Out of my top performing channels, which are the channels that are assisting those channels? And on the flip side, which is also very interesting to ask yourself, out of my top assisting channels, right? Where do users end up getting attributed to? Is there a correlation? Are there any trends? And just keep in mind, depending on the MMP you work with, this analysis can get very granular down at a creative level. So asking the same questions down at a creative level, which are there any particular creatives that are doing a lot of assisting? Does it differ from like the top level versus creative level? And then when you start, comparing the channels against each other, it's not only about how many got the attribution, but like how many assisted, is there a particular channel that perhaps is requiring a lot of assistance, right? Like 30 versus others that are just, require 2 or 3. That's a different picture, right, that you're painting here. Another thing you could realize is, are there any channels that are doing self-assisting? So think about it, perhaps serving a lot of, campaigns in parallel, bombarding that user, with ads to then finally get a conversion. But I want to make something very clear. None of this is either bad or good. That's not what we're trying to say here. It's information that it might be missing from your radar, right? But might be missing when you're coming down to the point of making your decisions for optimization. That's all. So you really, you deserve to have the full picture when really comparing channel efficiency. So CTV, I promise that CTV, is a great example to how assist analysis can be very powerful. I'm not sure how many of you are leveraging CTV campaigns, so connected TV. I promise you there's tons of potential there. We have a lot of clients that are testing out, are actually doing it actively, CTV campaigns, and the numbers are quite impressive. And you're going to see in a little bit for the case study that I have. But CTV, think about it. Those are campaigns that solely rely on impressions. So it could easily be cannibalized by more down funnel channels. And because of that, you could easily miss out on the potential, right? See the full picture of CTV campaigns and what it can bring and the audience that you can reach. If you're just looking at the one, the installs number. And so we quickly realized that CTV is the perfect combination when it comes to assist, but not just saying that it's the only use, obviously, as I just, mentioned to you all the previous slides, but I just want to bring, right, that in certain cases, assist analysis is pretty much a must-have. And I would arguably say that CTV is a case like that. And, to put things more into context and really maybe finally convince you if I haven't done so already, this case study is actually on CTV campaigns. We had a gaming client, a big gaming client, run CTV campaigns earlier this year. And they ran for 2 weeks with TV Scientific and Roku. They ran across, multiple CTV channels. Think of Hulu, Roku, and a few other ones. And their attribution window was actually 72 hours, which is quite good, right? It's quite long. And after those 2 weeks, they got a total of 13 million impressions. So hopefully that's a hint of the potential, the power of CTV campaigns and the type of audience, the size of the audience that you can reach. But out of those 13 million impressions, only, not only, but over 32,000 installs were generated directly from those CTV campaigns. What I mean by directly, remember my first slide, non-assisted installs, meaning there was no other engagement competing with these CTV campaigns. Because actually, if there were any other engagements, most likely, it would have gotten the credit, right? Because remember, CTV campaigns are just top of the funnel type of engagement channels. So with the 0.25% conversion rate, this is a very tough story to sell, right? To your team, let's say to your head of UA, let's say, oh, let's invest more in these channels. I think there's potential there. With solely these numbers, I think this is a very, very tough story to sell. But what we did is we turned on our assist analysis dashboard, and we quickly saw there was much more to it. And actually, 120,000 installs were assisted by those CTV campaigns. And so see, that's a much different story, bringing us to a almost 9% conversion rate. So look at this. You could have easily, right, passed on this opportunity of keep investing in the channels, really exploring a bit more. And, if you're in a place that you're trying to innovate your strategy, especially now with this space being so competitive and with data privacy regulations really making things a bit more difficult, it would be a pity, right, for you to really pass on such a great opportunity because, you were not seeing the full picture. So yeah, this was definitely a light bulb moment for all of us when we did this case study. All right, so just in time, but I know I want to summarize. If you don't remember anything else from this session, it's okay. I just want you to remember 3 things. that, assisted installs are very much present. I'm sure they're very much present in your data. It does happen, just, based on our quick analysis, with 2.7 billion attributions, at least 29% of those were assisted installs. So just think about it, there's a lot that could be missing from the picture here. And, by pinpointing where your users engage with, right, that the channels that are assisted, that install, you could really start uncovering new trends, new channels, right, such as CTV. And still speaking of CTV, really don't, if you're gonna, start exploring a bit more, want to innovate and try out those channels, assisted installs or, assisted installs analysis are really a must-have, because you saw by the case study that it paints two different pictures if you're just looking at purely installs, right, that were converted versus the ones that got assisted. And that's all I have for today. Back to you, David.
Excellent, Tatiana. Thank you very much for a great presentation. We're very grateful that you've joined App Growth Week for us. Really, really appreciate it. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you all.